one thing to be drawn to black culture and to be a part of it, but when you don't show allyship to other parts of black culture when it starts to get hard, I mean, that to me is deeply problematic.
And if I make my music, I'm gonna make it the way I want to make it. If it offends anybody, good.
Suppose in a way for attention or to get noticed, and I was just starting out and I wanted to be noticed.
So what's this new Miley all about? I don't even know who I am. Like every day I'm someone else.
Like, does the embrace have to be complete? Not just this sort of glamorous aspects of a culture or in someone's opinion, beautiful aspects, but also having to embrace the struggles.
White rappers are afforded more freedom to change their genre at will. You didn't retreat into a whiter genre. In fact, you arguably went deeper into black music.
If you're white in hip hop, you have to contribute to black culture in some sort of fashion. Otherwise, you are simply repeating history by coming into black culture, using that as a medium to steal and profit for self.
It doesn't matter, like authenticity doesn't matter and the truth doesn't matter, but that's not hip hop. Because hip hop is based in telling the truth.
And use the clothes and the language and the music. You come in with braids and golds to the point people are thinking you're mixed, and now you drink Bud Light and wear cowboy boots. You used it to propel yourself to the forefront, and then you reverted back to who you really were.
There was one time in the summer, like I picked up a copy of the New York Post, and like the cover was like, hip hop is white. It's like a cultural smudging, and it says to black kids, you don't have shit. You don't own shit, not even the shit you created for yourself.
The sickest thing about you is that you don't have any fantasies of your own. You fantasize about being somebody else, wearing somebody else's clothes, singing somebody else's songs.
I want your stories, and I want your songs. Let me hear you say, ice, ice, baby! And the winner is Vanilla Ice!
10 million copies sold worldwide.
He calls himself Vanilla Ice, and he is red hot.
A chance to catch a glimpse of the wickedest rapper of them all, Vanilla Ice. This is the man Madonna sends flowers to.
I wanted to escape all the criticism and everything, so I tried to commit suicide in 1994.
Sorry. Even though Ice Ice Baby sold over 40 million copies worldwide, I have no excuses. Rob Van Winkle here. You might know me better as Vanilla Ice. I'm sorry for the hairdos, baggy pants, the scandals, the lies, the gangs, and I'm sorry about the music. I was young, manipulated, and I was a puppet. Let me just tell you, when the record company creates all this stuff, bios around you, and, you know, they have your own publicists and everything, they create this image, okay? This image. And it's easy to hate on that image because it's a novelty act image, you know? I was kind of thrown into this new kids with snot category, you know?
Rumours about you. Some people suggested you've been, I guess the phrase would be economical with the truth concerning your past life, because there's these stories.
Don't believe the hype.
So what should we believe then? Is it true that you come from a fairly rough part of Miami? You're involved in some gang troubles out there?
Yes,
or is it the nice guy who was the cheerleader who collected Smurfs?
Yeah, that's me.
Because there's been lots of sort of conflicting stories out there about your past.
Oh yeah, tons of different stories. I wouldn't know what to believe if I was somebody that didn't know me.
He lies so much that he be believing them lies. But all the lies, everything that he put out there, the world found out that he wasn't from the streets. Remember, he also said he got stabbed.
I got stabbed 5 times in a street fight. Lost half the blood in my body, but people say I'm lying. You know?
When you get stabbed, it does something to you, and it did do something to me.
They don't think this pretty face could get stabbed or be from the streets, I guess. I really don't know.
He said he got stabbed in the hood.
How would you feel if everyone knew your secrets?
Last night, I was listening to Ice Ice Baby. And it wasn't really a hood record or anything. So for me, I'm thinking like, bro, it was like a friendly record.
Stop, collaborate and listen. I sit back with my brand new invention. Something.
You didn't have to lie about you being from the hood.
Being from the hood, it was
it was like, why, bro?
It was a pop record. It was a pop record.
Hear my 5.0 with my rag top down so my hair can blow. Girl ain't so scared.
It was a pop record, a dance record, a feel good record.
Stories here in the States about Vanilla Ice not really being from the ghetto, from the back, his background not really being a hard sort of background, him being more or less a college type kid.
I had to show my scars, which is something that I should never have had to do, because I had to prove a point that I'm not even proud about, a point that I got stabbed.
Ever since I got stabbed, my life has completely changed. I've gone with God, and that is the way to go.
At the time, he epitomized everything that was wrong with the way the culture was headed. It wasn't authentic.
No, what they're saying is they're showing their own jealousy, man. That's all it is. You saw Flavor Flav, you know, me and him, we're homies. Is
that why you brought him out, just to show you have a black supporter? And
No, I brought him out because he's a friend of mine. You don't know what it's like to have to do what you got to do to survive. Some of the things you do that you're not proud about that you're doing. You never lived that. You don't know how it is. That's what my next movie is. That's why I say I'm gonna shoot a gangster movie, because that's the life that I've lived.
He had no concept of the culture.
Man, if you can't see that I'm from the streets, then you're blind, because where did I learn to dance?
Vanilla Ice could fucking dance. The dude was ill. If you can dance that dope, then and you got a flat top, that's difficult.
The way I dance, look at it. It's street dance.
At that time, rap culture looked very different. Most rappers didn't dance, especially the likes of NWA, Ice-T or EPMD, who projected a more serious street-oriented image. Meanwhile, New Jack Swing was rising in popularity, led by acts like Teddy Riley's group called Guy and the group Rex and Effects. This genre blended smooth R&B vocals with hip-hop beats, dance pop energy and jazz-influenced swing rhythms, creating a sound that was far more performance-driven. Even so, male rappers who incorporated dance into their act were still relatively uncommon. A few stood out, Kid and Play, who later starred in House Party, along with Redhead Kingpin and The Fresh Prince, but they were exceptions rather than the rule. A white male rapper who could dance well and entertain on stage was especially rare. This created a unique opening in the industry, particularly after seeing the massive success of MC Hammer, who proved that high-energy performance and choreography could resonate with a wide audience. Into that space stepped Vanilla Ice. With the backing of his record label, he was positioned to capitalize on this gap, bridging styles and audiences, and carving out a place in a scene that was already evolving.
The reason why he's selling is because basically he's pop and he's white.
I was taught that publicity, whether bad or good, is still publicity. That's why I say as long as they spell my name right, I'll be all right.
Music, where does rap music come from? The street.
And he would say things on interviews and like,
I'm from the hood, I'm from the ghettos more or less, all right? Man, if you can't see that I'm from the streets, then you're blind.
I'm from the streets, and if you can't see it, then you're blind as a bat.
Well, I grew up in the streets.
You know, I'm from the streets, rap music is from the streets.
What I do comes from the streets. I'm from the streets. How many white people do you know can rap?
What's my favorite word?
Street is the word you use a hell of a lot, I know this. That's at the top of your list there.
Right.
But that's where you're from, so that's why you would
where
use
I'm
it a lot.
from.
Saying you're from the streets. I'm from the streets, man. If it weren't for rap, I'd probably be in jail or dead. What street? Sesame Street?
But when you come out and you say street, street is like a rite of passage. Every black person is in street. When he came out, he insulted a lot of people by saying that. You know, I'm from the street. I'm like, what street? Sesame Street? What street you from? You ain't from no street, not none I've been on.
You know, that never, said, white boy can't make it in rap music. Kiss my wife.
he was a clown.
Talk show hosts try to give me a joke, but that's okay. I'm selling records anyway.
The only reason he's getting over is because he's cute.
Ladies, I want to rock with you. And later in the night, I'd like to pursue something real sexy and nice. That's why the ladies call me Ice.
Snow, the Canadian artist behind the hit Informer, faced some criticism for cultural appropriation, but nowhere near the level directed at Vanilla Ice.
Snow can go two ways. The American way can be because a white boy doing Jamaican music, right? And the Jamaican way, which my culture is break it down for superb, notorious, outrageous white boy.
The song reached #1 on the Billboard Hot 100 and used dancehall rhythms and Jamaican sounds, which led some people to questioning why a white Canadian was performing in that style.
Just picked it up.
just hanging with the Jamaicans, you know what I'm saying? And I used to get the tapes, like I said, and then I used to just rewind it and play it and play it and rewind it and play it. And it was almost like a game to me because I didn't understand what he was saying. And I had to rewind it. Oh, that's what he said. And I hear the next version. What did he say? Oh, that's what he said. So then I was really getting into it. Still, it
raises an interesting question. If Snow had reached the same level of fame and financial success as Vanilla Ice, would the reaction have been different? Sometimes the backlash seems tied not just to cultural borrowing, but to the scale of success and exposure, because if an artist never breaks into the mainstream, few people pay attention long enough to criticize.
You know, I knew I was on top. I knew I was a target. You know, 17 million records, the most sold rap record of all time.
And the people who try to hold me down and talk bad about me, kiss my white butt. Word to your mother.
You know, I was like nobody, and then next I'm a superstar.
Yeah, like go right past us now into the studio. We got a lot of people screaming and yelling.
I mean, I just passed being just a star, and I went straight to superstar. And it was like...
For 10 million copies sold worldwide of To The Extreme, this is for you, Vanilla Ice, yeah?
He sat me down and said, you know, you're not a star, you're not considered just a star, you're considered a superstar. You know, star is somebody that's got a gold record or one-time platinum record. Superstar is someone that sells over, say, 5 million records.
The rapper himself that'd be like, yo, you know what, I'm tired, man. How this cat selling 5 million, man?
When I was reading some stuff like it was 5 million copies. Is it more now? Is it sold more now?
10.5.
10.5 million copies?
Yeah.
Vanilla Ice came in and put out Ice Ice Baby. I think that went on to sell 10 million copies. So, you know, as far as, you know, the hip hop purists, they may feel like, you know, it was poppy, but anything to spread the hip hop culture helps. It adds on, you know what I mean?
And if I make my music, I'm gonna make it the way I want to make it. If it offends anybody, good.
And that's just one of the paradoxes of rap becoming mainstream. In some cases, white artists became a bridge that carried hip-hop into audiences who hadn't embraced it yet. Their visibility in the genre sometimes opened new pathways for black artists to reach different demographics.
There's a lot of artists not getting their props now. Tribe Called Quest, KMD, Jungle Brothers, there's a lot of great groups who don't reach the market that the Quiff does.
I'm sorry.
Vanilla Quiff, Vanilla Wafer. You stand on this pedestal and say, yo, look at my bank. We're saying, look at the artist, look at the creation of this music. Please don't forget where the music came from.
12 months later, your mom studied the sight of your...
We felt like we had the platform due to lack of melanin, and that we were white, that we could make a record where we could smack the face of pop culture and say, yo, there's a whole different era of hip-hop that you need to really look at.
Burn houses where Fava was afraid to go. It's where I first kicked Malengo.
And when we went pop, we took Nice and Smooth.
Cause man, my tip is harder than a rock.
We took Cypress Hill. We took real MCs on national tours with us that never saw national tours before.
A notable example was the band Blondie, who experimented with rap on their song called Rapture in the early 80s. And from then, it was clear that lead singer Debbie Harry wasn't a professional or experienced female wordsmith with the understanding of rap flows and rap vernacular. The first track reached #1 on the Billboard Hot 100. Some critics worried that a white new wave band might overshadow the black artists who created the culture, while others saw it as a novelty. But the band had real ties to the early hip-hop scene through Fab Five Freddy, who introduced them to the culture and in return was mentioned lyrically in the track Rapture.
Fab Five Freddy told me everybody slide. DJ spinning, I said my flash is fast.
They also helped bring Grandmaster Flash to television, so unlike Vanilla Ice, Blondie didn't try to claim a street or ghetto background. Instead, they openly acknowledged figures within hip-hop culture, which may explain why their crossover experiment into rap often escaped the same level of criticism around cultural appropriation. Artists like Tina Marie, for example, were widely embraced within black R&B circles, demonstrating that cultural exchange can be accepted when it's grounded in sincerity, knowledge, and genuine commitment to the craft. So for those outside the culture, engaging with black music has always carried an unspoken responsibility to respect the art form, to understand its roots, and to take the time to study where it comes from. When that respect is present, the response can be very different. Black music has never been a closed or gate-kept space. It wasn't about shutting others out, it was about the culture being given the respect it deserved. The issue was never participation, but how that participation was approached. When a group called the Young Black Teenagers emerged, their name immediately sparked controversy. Many saw it as provocative, even misleading, arguing that by calling themselves black, they weren't just participating in hip-hop culture, but appropriating an identity.
Here I go, shorty, got the 40 smash to a pass if you crash, make a dash to the trash, tap the cap, heck a lot, not a lot, not a...
It raised deeper questions about where the line lies between engaging with a culture and claiming it as one's own. To some critics, the group appeared to benefit from black culture while not actually being black, which made their concept feel tone deaf, regardless of their intentions.
Walked through the door and the first thing I saw was Bart Simpson with a knot and a honey.
This left audiences divided, questioning whether their presence was a sincere expression of respect for the culture or simply a conceptual gimmick.
Another thing that a lot of brothers say, well, yo, are you using this name Young Black Teenagers to sell records? You know what I'm saying? Like, you're using this for a gimmick. Young Black Teenagers isn't 5 Caucasians. We represent a new movement, a race without a color, you know what I'm saying? The hip-hop culture. The hip-hop culture, the youth of today, the youth of hip-hop today are young black teenagers. See what I'm saying? It has nothing to do with a skin color. It's a race without a color.
Kid Rock's rise in the early 90s is often pointed to in these conversations because of how his image and sound evolved over time. He initially leaned heavily into hip-hop aesthetics and culture, building visibility in a space rooted in black musical traditions. But as career progressed, he pivoted toward rock, country, and southern rock, while also becoming more publicly political and aligning with a distinctly all-American identity.
Kid Rock, who started out as a rapper, doing songs with Too Short and had like a little high top fade thing, whatever. At one point, he just said, fuck all this rap shit, fuck all this black music shit. I'm gonna go do some country rock music and have Confederate flags because there's just more money over here.
His breakout album, Devil Without a Cause, blended rap, rock, and funk, clearly drawing from black musical styles that helped shape his early success. From there, his transformation into a more country-leaning mainstream figure raised questions for critics.
Now that's fine that he says fuck all this hip hop shit and this rap shit and he go out and branch out and do some country shit. But when he starts raving that Confederate flag and, you know, talking that pro-Trump shit and all that type of shit, you know, it's indicative of his hypocrisy.
Fucking, he had Too Short producing his record. He was on tour with Ice Cube and them, Too Short, doing some tour. That was a big deal to us, you know what I mean? And he's like, don't trust anybody black in this business. I never heard him say anything direct racist other than that.
It was all cool when you were over here benefiting from our art form.
Yeah.
But then when you saw it to be no longer of benefit, you jumped ship. So, you know, that dude right there, Kid Rock a piece of shit, for real.
The core issue isn't just the genre shift. Artists evolve all the time. But whether that shift represented genuine artistic growth or a strategic move away from the culture that helped launch him. So the debate becomes, did he meaningfully respect and contribute to the traditions he drew from, or did he use them as a stepping stone before moving into a more commercially advantageous lane? Supporters often point to his diverse musical upbringing as an explanation, but critics see that argument as a convenient way to sidestep deeper questions about influence, credit, and accountability.
Vanilla
Ice, yeah, we rolling hard like a Sherman tank.
We're making and taking more
money than your bankers make.
They were like, here's a white kid that comes in and outsells every black artist in the world, doing hip hop. So they took it offensively,
I know a lot of black rappers are probably angry because some of the white people screaming didn't buy rap until you did it, until they saw a vanilla face on the cover of an album. That probably makes them angry because
if it makes them angry, you're angry. It's not my fault. And people who don't understand rap music, they say, well, he borrows this or steals this.
How is it possible that the only two rappers in the world playing on pop radio is MC Hammer and Vanilla Ice? I'm listening to Kane, Light, Paz K, Tribe, Ultra Mag, Public Enemy, all this great hip hop, and it's not playing nan on pop radio.
Stop! I'd rather be called just a rapper, Why is it always this white, black? Why is it white? I got black fans, I got white fans, Puerto Rican, Jews, anything, it doesn't matter. I'm just a rapper. I'm doing music. Music isn't colorized. Reverse racist rappers out there that don't like the fact that I'm doing well, because as a black rapper, they couldn't get as far as a white rapper did. And that is really a true fact, even though I didn't have anything to do with it, You can't blame it on me.
Around that time, Vanilla Ice's record label didn't invest heavily in the hip-hop scene.
There was something there that made me stray from the norm. You recognize instantly that this is a superstar.
They were known for having artists like Boy George, Jesus Jones, and female artists of the likes of Wilson Phillips.
And they said, well, we're gonna take your hip hop record and we're gonna cross it over to this pop market. And I was actually like, no way, man, I don't even listen to pop music. What are you talking about? It's not gonna work. And they were like, well, we're so sure it'll work. Because I told them, no, I don't wanna do it. Here's a check for $1.5 million. And I was 19 at that time. It was like I won the lottery, man. It's like, fuck, what do you want me to do?
Never made a deal with an artist over my 30 years in this business without meeting the artist, seeing the artist perform live, and really getting a sense.
So critics argued that the label treated rap more like a pop trend to monetize than a culture they were committed to supporting.
I'm sure that it was probably the record company saying, well, gee, if we put this white guy out like that, and there's known that he's from a very well-off background, blah, 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 people just won't think that he's credible.
We are dealing with a 22-year-old young man who has a vivid imagination, and that vivid imagination has helped him write his music and create his show and become the persona that he is. So I think we have to, give him a little slack.
Me, it's my posse too. That's why the freaks are jucking like crazy. Just moving and grooving, trying to sing along all through the ghetto groove of this here song. Now you're amazed.
At that point, the hip hop community had kind of labeled me a sellout from going hip hop to pop. So I did. I sold out. I took the money. I sold way out. And I think anybody in my shoes would have done the same damn thing.
I'm dreaming of a white Christmas.
Rap music doesn't go that big unless it's something real special, and I mean, I never thought I was real special.
And people say that Vanilla Ice was actually a really poppin' rapper in Texas, had respect from the community, but then once the label got their hands on him and once they got their hands on Ice Ice Baby, that they blew him out of the fucking water. But also, he ended up looking pretty fucking corny as a result.
The record company is the one who tells me all this stuff, because this thing has happened so fast to me. There's a lot of stuff I didn't understand, And I was like, why are these people writing all this stuff about me? I haven't done anything to anybody. I'm a good guy. What have I done? I have no reason to lie about anything, And they're like, well, Ice, welcome to the record business. And I was going, okay.
They treated Vanilla Ice like a teen pop superstar with a strategy of making sure a heavy rotation of his music on MTV.
This is V to the ANILLAICE right here in the place to be on MTV.
And other music channels and multiple appearances on morning shows, talk shows, and teen programs where in full flow. Music videos stylized with dance sequences, extreme sports imagery, and flashy outfits, emphasizing fun and mainstream appeal, focused on top 40 pop radio instead of hip-hop stations. They pushed him to stations that normally wouldn't play hardcore rap, giving him massive crossover exposure, branded merchandise, posters, t-shirts, and even a Vanilla Ice To The Extreme board game following onto a movie deal. cool as ice.
Drop that zero and get with the hero. Excuse me? See you later, Dick.
Which tied in with the album and video promotion, which gained him instant superstardom.
Yo, pump it up, baby, pump it up.
Chance to catch a glimpse of the wickedest rapper of them all, 22-year-old Vanilla Ice. This is the man Madonna sends flowers to and who's guaranteed to make any self-respecting teeny bopper go weak at the knees.
Ice Ice Baby hit #1 and global tours followed massive revenue for the label, and the hip-hop credibility suffered. The label didn't care about culture or appropriation. This is a pump and dump. They were winning, and many rappers and fans felt he was a manufactured product, short-lived mainstream career.
Pressure of the fame, the manufactured image, the criticisms that he was receiving at that time, I think that ended up really destroying him.
In my body, you left a stain in my brain, and all I kept saying to myself was,
I wanted to escape all the criticism and everything using drugs, and I did. It just kept getting worse and worse because when you come off of the drugs, you have to face reality.
My bank is stupid because I just listen to real rap and stupid.
People wasn't taking him serious, yo. Even on The Living Color, they was impersonating him on that, yo, making fun of him. So after a while, he just became a joke, yo.
When Jim Carrey did that on In Living Color, I almost died.
So I tried to commit suicide in 1994. I overdosed on heroin, cocaine, ecstasy, marijuana, alcohol, whatever. I took enough to kill 10 people, man, an army.
After the novelty wore off, audiences moved on quickly, leaving Vanilla Ice with a one-hit wonder label. He was exploited for mainstream pop consumption, with the label designing him as a bridge between rap culture and white suburban audiences, using marketing with aggressive, mainstream-focused and image-driven, making Vanilla Ice famous almost overnight.
The sickest thing about you is that you don't have any fantasies of your own. You fantasize about being somebody else, wearing somebody else's clothes, singing somebody else's songs. It's pathetic.
But everybody sees you, and everybody has their own impressions of you, you know what I'm saying? And I just, do what I can to be myself, I'm not trying to put on a front. People see what they want, and they accept what they want. It's like I don't like to drop my pants, and I don't want to be recognized for dropping my pants. But if my audience wants it, and they ask for it, and they're there to see me, then I'll do it for them. People always see me and misconceive me. That's why you gotta go get the album, motherfucker, believe me.
At the end of the day, Mark Wahlberg as an actor has done pretty well in film and has made a career from it, and with films spanning over decades in Hollywood. But he doesn't escape the character he played in hip-hop. He rapped, he wore his baseball cap backwards. Hip-hop aesthetics were on show. And he spoke in what they now call a black scent.
Right up. Peace, 5Gs. We out. Monk D, Cock D. Mackin' by the pool with some fly honeys. I'm Irish American, and never would I pretend to be an African and needing a history lesson because you forgot where you came from.
People always come up to me and be like, well, you're a white dude, how can you rap? That hip-hop is what's pumped in my neighborhood since I was yay big, you know? It's what I've been doing from breakdancing into the pop and craze and all that, It's just like, people can exploit it and do damage to it in different ways. A lot of people feel that Vanilla Ice did that as well as MC Hammer.
But some fans still felt Marky Mark's style looked commercialized and packaged for MTV, with the fashion being used as a visual shortcut to hip-hop credibility, which later on led on to John Cena, who also adopted a similar aesthetic, strongly influenced by hip-hop fashion and culture, acting as sort of rap-based persona in WWE, which was used as a wrestling gimmick rather than a lived cultural connection. The similarity between Cena and Marky Mark is that both used hip-hop aesthetics, clothing, slang, performance style, presenting a rap-influenced persona within mainstream entertainment. And because discussions around cultural appropriation have become more prominent, we question the portrayal and also the financial gain and success it brings in business. And even though he had a band of black dancers and performers called the Funky Bunch, it didn't excuse him from feeding off the culture until it was no longer needed.
It's like there was no discipline with music, and when I found movies, I became very disciplined. I realized, there was no room for screwing around. I think music always kind of promoted this attitude of being able to do whatever I wanted. I show up late, don't show up at all, go on an hour late, but I don't miss it that much. You know, now it's like there's a lot riding on it, you know, and there's a lot of other people, you know, that make up of a movie crew and cast, and there's a lot more responsibility. So when I found film, I really found an added discipline that helped me in my life.
But the irony in him starring in 2001's Rockstar was actually very telling in the context of his career. In real life, he was a white pop rap artist, borrowing heavily from hip-hop aesthetics and style. And in Rockstar, he plays a singer in a heavy metal band, literally stepping into a genre he has no real-life roots in.
You think you can dress up like me and be a rock star?
No, sir.
No, sir. You have no idea what it takes. What? You think it's all sex, drugs, and rock and roll, do you, huh? Well, you got the sex wrong, didn't you?
The character's struggle is about earning your credibility in a genre he wasn't born into, which mirrors the criticism he received for pop rap. But in reverse, here it's rock, not hip hop. The line from Mark, "You can't just step in and claim it," carries an extra layer of irony, because he himself rose to fame in a genre where his authenticity had long been questioned. In playing a character learning that credibility matters, the film inadvertently mirrors the scrutiny he faced in his own early rap career.
Apparently when you go home, people come up to you and they go, "Yo, your shit is hype." Is that true? Do people really talk like that?
It really depends. It really depends on the person. But you know, sometimes, you know, it's actually worse for me when I go to my neighborhood and stuff, you know, because people, you know, the first thing I get is, you know, you ain't shit, I knew you before you had that, you know.
The line about "you can't just step in and claim it" reads like a winking nod to that criticism, suggesting he knew the accusations of exploitation and fame-driven borrowing weren't entirely misplaced. He was aware of how his early career looked, and the movie line functions as a meta-commentary. He's recognizing the concept of cultural appropriation while playing a character in a completely different genre, showing a mirrors of his own career trajectory, making the ending line about respecting a genre a kind of tongue-in-cheek commentary on his past.
No more metal shit. It's all about hip-hop, it's all gravy, it's all bling bling, pinky ring, word about city, bling bling, all that shit. No more of this. It's about this. Alright, you heard me? Lay your shit by the TV and watch this shit here. This shit the bombs.
On one hand, the line acknowledges power dynamics, and that fame can be built on someone else's culture. And, on the other hand, it centers the white performer's awareness, rather than fully highlighting or crediting the originators of the style he profited from. And also, awareness alone doesn't return the economic or cultural benefit that black artists and communities generated in the hip-hop scene. In the aftermath of the backlash against Vanilla Ice, the landscape shifted for white rappers. Credibility became harder to earn, and artists like Milkbone entered a scene where skepticism was already high. To be taken seriously, many had to come up through the underground or receive cosigns from respected black artists, almost as a form of cultural validation. Even then, questions lingered. How long could that credibility last? Was their presence authentic, or were they simply adopting a role? For some critics, it wasn't just about skill, it was about whether these artists were genuinely part of the culture or merely performing it.
Whoa! Mr. Controversy, Eminem!
Eminem, yes!
Nearly a decade after Vanilla Ice's rise and the backlash that followed, a new figure emerged, Slim Shady, better known as Eminem.
This guy raps like his parents jerked him. He sounds like Eric Sermon, the generic version. This whole crowd looks suspicious. It's all dudes in here, except for these bitches.
He arrived with undeniable skill, bringing a sharp, almost academic approach to lyricism that set him apart in hip-hop.
Brain's dead weight. I'm trying to get my head straight, but I can't figure out which Spice Girl I want to impregnate.
Backed and certified by Dr. Dre, he wasn't just accepted, he was recognized as a top-tier elite artist. At the same time, broader industry dynamics played a role in his visibility. The realities of a predominantly white power structure in music inevitably intersected with his success, whether he intended it or not. Still, beyond that, Eminem earned deep respect from many prominent black artists, which solidified his credibility within the culture.
M is an amazing artist, super talented, super lyrical. Eminem talked about his hood. He not talking about, you know, the projects in Detroit. He talking about trailer park stuff.
Cause I live at home in the trailer. Mom, I'm coming home to you.
He talking about white hood shit. This is white ghetto stuff. You know what I'm saying? That we're learning about now. I'm like, yo, this is so dope, and I respect him for that because he wasn't trying to pretend to be something he wasn't.
Wink's working on a deal where I can get free studio time to record my demo.
Yeah.
In doing so, he raised the bar significantly. For any white rapper coming after him, the expectations became higher, the scrutiny sharper. Yet his success also sent a powerful message, showing that it was possible to not only enter hip-hop, but to survive and thrive within a culture rooted in black expression.
This award is the first award I've ever won in my entire life. And it means so much to me that it is for best hip hop, because that's what inspired me to move to America.
I didn't attack Iggy's Fancy record because at the time I didn't know the level of cultural appropriation we were watching at the time.
Suppose in a way for attention or to get noticed, and I was just starting out and I wanted to be noticed.
Isn't she from Australia?
When you hear Nicki Minaj spit, Nicki Minaj wrote it. You don't write your own raps, you're racially insensitive, and then you act like you don't care.
People went from saying she just was a whack artist.
Iggy Azalea, yeah, hey. Oh, no, you can come, because what you're doing is definitely not rap.
Even in terms of Australia, she said some quite disrespectful things about Aboriginal people.
I just regret having an opinion at all because it wasn't necessarily my place to have an opinion. Seeing the way that the other artists in the music industry would distance themselves from me publicly, that I was only welcome in secret.
I pretty much already know the lifestyle of, you know, sisters here in America, and I don't need a white girl from Australia to come in here and pretend like she knows it.
There is a white girl from Australia that spits in an Australian accent, and her name is Chelsea Jane. Like that I can get into. Like, teach me Australian hip-hop culture.
You heard her, she'll reset herself again. Her biggest mistake was ever creating man.
Don't come to America and try to convince me that you're gangsta boo.
Normally I'm no subliminal criminal, but you get famous if I say your name in an interview.
Tell me about your life in Australia. That's what I don't know about. I don't know about the hardships of a white girl who loves hip-hop, who is in a place that she might feel is stifling to her. I don't know that. Bring me into that world and do it authentically, in your real fucking voice.
Your English is very good. How long did it take you to learn English once you got here?
It was really easy because we speak English in Australia, you idiot.
Oh.
To be honest with you, sometimes you do things that you wish you didn't, I suppose in a way for attention or to get noticed, and I was just starting out and I wanted to be noticed.
I'ma change your life, I'ma change it, I'ma change your life.
The career of Iggy Azalea has often been overshadowed by controversy, particularly around cultural appropriation. When she rose to fame in the early 2000s with hits like Fancy, she entered a genre, hip-hop, that is deeply rooted in Black American culture.
Can't see why anybody would think it were negative to see different races or me or a white person rapping, because I think it's a great thing in music that is unifying, that other cultures are drawn to, and if people of different colors like myself that want to be a part of it, then it should be a positive thing.
White rappers before Iggy Azalea, such as Tyree B, were often received very differently, and much of that came down to timing, visibility, and how audiences understood authenticity in each era, rather than simply who co-signed them.
Brown, not black, as a matter of fact, I'm white. So believe the hype. Deep six in the mix. Quincy D, he kicks the bass as they open the case. But there ain't no witness. You can't get with this. And if you try, you'll end up on my hit list.
Although she was signed to Eazy-E's Ruthless Records, her reach remained relatively limited. She never became a dominant mainstream figure, and as a result, the level of scrutiny she faced was comparatively low. A few years later, another artist emerged with a very different trajectory. Princess Superstar.
I got my nails done for the special day. Oliver Lake, Casey Christian pissing the bidet. I miss rapping John Benet.
An American rapper and electroclash artist who gained prominence in the late 90s, she blended hip-hop with electronica and punk influences. She became widely known for her track Bad Babysitter, released in the early 2000s.
Hi Josh, what you wanna do? You wanna watch cartoons? HBO got Platoon. Hey, get back in the room.
Princess Superstar, who is white and Jewish, was sometimes criticised for rapping in a style rooted in black hip-hop. Early in her career, some underground critics and music blogs questioned whether her persona represented cultural borrowing rather than an authentic hip-hop experience.
We're just gonna do a little interview here with my main man and head of my record company, and I've got a lot of beef to pick with him, so we can basically start from there.
In contrast, Tari B's connection to the scene through Ruthless Records and Eazy-E gave her a form of cultural legitimacy at the time. Iggy Azalea emerged at a time when hip-hop had become a global force, constantly discussed and dissected online. Every aspect of her artistry, her performances, accent and lyrical style was analysed in real time across social media platforms. In the 90s, conversations around cultural appropriation were not part of mainstream discourse in the same way they are today. Tari's credibility was largely rooted in her direct association with West Coast hip-hop culture, and her aggressive style aligned with the hardcore rap aesthetics of that era.
My ballpoint pen is my weapon, loaded with knowledge. My lyrics are stepping, Betty I kept in my mind, and to find the key.
Iggy, on the other hand, often operated within a pop rap space, which led some critics to argue that her music commercialized elements of black culture for a broader, often white, mainstream audience. For many critics, the issue wasn't simply that she was participating in hip-hop, but how she was doing it. One of the biggest points of backlash was her adoption of a Southern American accent in her rap styles, despite being from Australia.
Turn me up, break the knob right. I get dressed like it's prom night.
You can't help it when you adopt a culture from somewhere else, you can't help but be influenced by the accents, by the sound. So there are a lot of Australian rappers that would rap in an American accent early on. But she brings up some pretty interesting issues, because I think what she was doing was almost like this verbal type of blackface. Like, I mean, what accent is she trying to put on there?
I guess I am an imposter. I'm from Australia, right? So maybe I am.
I got bags, I got real estate. For play, I ain't come to play. I got big fish money, he gon' bite the bait.
Critics argued that this felt performative, like she was borrowing elements of black culture for aesthetic and commercial gain without having lived the experiences behind it.
It's not like Eminem. Eminem raps how he talks. Iggy Azalea talks like this. Hello, mate, I'm Iggy. And then when she raps, she does an impression of a black woman from the deep south. They record that and they sell it, and it's okay. Do you get what I'm saying? Iggy Azalea is a minstrel that couldn't be asked to black up. That's what Iggy Azalea is.
Like, it's weird, you know, she's from a small town called Mullumbimby, a rural Australian town, and then she speaks in a certain way, and then suddenly when she raps, I don't know what she's trying to sound like.
Iggy Azalea having an Australian accent but rapping in a Southern accent it's kind of an act, but it's no different than pure suburban rapper born in like a white household or something like that throwing on the New York accent when he's rapping. That's the same fucking thing to me. But maybe a lot of what she does is entertainment, especially because she's in the pop world. So she's dancing around, she got backup dancers and this and that.
Is that how you guys dance in Australia, or did some girls in Atlanta teach you these movements?
Some girls in Atlanta taught me these movements. When I would be in Australia listening to rap music, I felt really influenced by Southern music, and I really liked UGK, I really liked Outkast, and I really liked Dungeon Family, and I liked to listen to a lot of that. So that was really what I would listen to, and of course that's not my accent, but it's what I was influenced by. And then I came and I moved over here to the South, and it's how I would hear people rap. And although obviously you can hear me talking, that I don't have a Southern accent, but when I would be rapping with people and I would do it that way, that's the way that they would just think it was cooler.
You don't care what your music's described like because you don't care about the music. This is a hustle to you. You know what I mean? You trying to whatever works. Because tomorrow you could throw this off and do country music. You just want to be famous. You just want to have money. You just want to be popular.
Another set of artists took a similar, yet more extreme approach. They initially tried to break through using their natural Scottish accents, only to be dismissed and even mocked.
Everything you say is soft. You're way off. This is me slimmer, so that crazy talk gets disregarded like the weight that I've lost.
Like, there's Scotland and there's rap. We can't sell Scottish rap. You will never, ever make it in rap.
So they pushed further, reinventing themselves completely.
I'm murder cats, I'm a verbal attack. I'm so super when I rap, it's like return to the max. Turn me.
We tell him we don't get out of bed for anything less than 70 grand. And he's just like, all right, 70 grand each. And we're like, all right, now we're being fucking payrolled by the most powerful guy in the music industry.
They adopted new names, Californian backstories, American accents, and the aesthetics of West Coast hip hop. This time it worked. They secured a record deal by presenting themselves as something they were not.
Did was they decided to just reinvent themselves as Californian rappers. So they just put on, stupid West Coast accents, went back down to London and said, hey, look, we're from California, give us some gigs. And the next thing you knew, everyone was falling for their act. They were getting big gigs, they were playing with, big rap acts, they were getting signed to a management company, they were getting signed to record companies. I mean, all this incidentally in an area in which being for real is the thing that you're meant to be.
When the truth eventually surfaced, they were labelled scammers and fraudsters. Yet their story didn't end there. It was later turned into a film, California Scheming, allowing them to gain renewed attention, notoriety, and even potential financial return.
Where are you from?
LA. LA? The next Snoop, Wu-Tang Clan, the next Eminem.
Their deception became entertainment. While the film offers a reflective tone and exposes genuine flaws within the music industry, it also highlights an uncomfortable reality. A dishonest act can be repackaged into something profitable, even when framed as a critique or cautionary tale, which we have seen with films like Catch Me If You Can, based on Frank Abagnale, who impersonated a pilot, doctor and lawyer, and The Wolf of Wall Street, based on Jordan Belfort, who ran massive stock scams and went to prison only to become a motivational speaker, sell books after his release, showing that the system can unintentionally reward the very behaviour it's exposing. This raises a deeper question. Was their intention to mock or exploit the culture? By their own account, they believed in their musical ability. Their argument was not that they lacked talent, but that the industry refused to accept Scottish rappers. Reinvention, in their eyes, became a way to bypass that barrier. A different but related case is Iggy Azalea, who chose to adopt an Americanized rap accent early in her career, rather than first testing how her natural Australian voice might be received. While not an act of deception in the same way, it still reflects a strategic adaptation to industry expectations. In both situations, broader structural questions emerge. These artists were able to navigate spaces within hip-hop that can be more difficult for some black artists to access, benefiting from a system where non-black performers are sometimes marketed as more novel or commercially safe. This is where discussions of white privilege enter, not to suggest the absence of struggle, but to acknowledge that the system itself can operate differently depending on who is moving through it. Amy Winehouse's speaking voice and singing voice sounded different, largely because of her deep connection to American jazz, soul, and blues.
My albums are kind of straight jazz, hip-hop, cross. There is no blues or folk, you know what I mean? It's just a straight jazz hip-hop album, man.
Those genres have their own vocal styles, phrasing, tone, and rhythm. So when she sang, her voice naturally shifted to match that tradition. A lot of British singers sounded more American when they sang because of vowels being stretched and rounded differently in melodies, pronouncing words and using certain consonants are softened or dropped. What made it work was her authenticity. She wasn't just imitating a sound, she truly understood the music. She immersed herself in jazz and blues, and it showed in her phrasing, timing, and ability to improvise. Her delivery carried real emotional depth rooted in those traditions. Because of that, her credibility was rarely questioned. She had the skill and knowledge to back it up and could easily perform raw, a cappella if put on the spot, proving her connection to the art was genuine. At the same time, the UK music landscape itself has long been shaped by diaspora influences, where different cultures blend and evolve together. However, adopting an American accent while rapping was often frowned upon. The conversation around cultural appropriation in rap looks different in the UK compared to the US. In the UK, acts like Pete and Bass are often seen as quirky or unconventional, and over time they've been embraced by parts of the scene. In the US though, similar artists like Frank and Maury are more likely to be called out quickly, especially if they're seen as mocking or cosplaying black culture. With Pete and Bass, reactions are mixed. Some see cultural appropriation, others see respect. They've gained acceptance because they're consistent and don't pretend to be something they're not. But they also didn't come up through the culture traditionally, having been introduced to rap through younger family members. That raises the question, is this participation or performance? The answer often depends on how authenticity is judged, and that standard isn't applied evenly. At the same time, white artists can benefit from black culture and often face fewer barriers, avoid certain stereotypes or policing, and can even be seen as novel, funny, or refreshing for things others might be criticized for. That's why acts like Pete and Bass are given a kind of protective framing. They're often treated as harmless or entertaining, while similar content from younger black drill artists might be taken more seriously or judged more harshly. This difference in perception is where people see privilege at work. It can create more room to experiment without immediate rejection, less pressure to prove lived experience, and a tendency to be framed as entertainment rather than a threat. When someone like Iggy steps into black culture, especially through music, people naturally pay close attention to authenticity. She spoke in a way that was noticeably different from how she sounded when she rapped, so it raised questions.
I feel like if other artists can play around with accents, does it really hurt anybody?
In her case, she adopted a different accent of a southern sound in her music. So there becomes a real expectation that it comes from a place of deep respect and understanding. That means putting in the time to study the genre, learning its history and influences, and developing real skill. An Australian rap artist who has reached the same level of global success as Iggy Azalea is rare, and many artists from that scene have shown their ability to step up and perform on the mic whenever the opportunity arises.
More than I like me a man, I never needed a hand, but a pretty guy with a long one and a big bank who can pull up on command.
Oh, kiss on that mirror and point to myself and say love you forever. Till we got it, cause we never give up, and bridges cut ties and consider them severed.
From that perspective, live performance, radio appearances, and freestyle moments are often seen as chances to demonstrate raw skill and confidence.
My rank high, yes, I've been burning shit down since left eye.
However, in observing Iggy's public appearances, some listeners have felt that she appeared less focused on showcasing spontaneous lyricism in those settings, and at times seemed to avoid freestyle situations on radio. And at the same time, when put on the spot to freestyle and demonstrate her lyrical flow, the response wasn't particularly positive.
He got a house on the hill, sits in the valley. Said he trying to move on with life, but he still want to be a good daddy. So I sit in a ride cause I don't want us overlapping. She spending money on Mac, that's cute. I get checks from them in Paris. Better check my tax bracket. What you think was gonna happen? Nagging, now he's leaving, and y'all broke up like madmen. These exes, excessive.
John in Tennessee, go ahead, what you want to say?
That shit is fucking trash, dog. Get the fuck off the airwaves.
In that moment, it sparked questions about whether her actual skill level matched the level of fame she had reached. These perceptions have contributed to broader discussions about how artists engage with expectations around live rap performance and improvisation. In the wider context, fame, especially within a genre so closely tied to cultural expression, is often viewed as more than just commercial success. It carries expectations around skill, authenticity, and respect for the traditions that shape the art form. Record labels are ultimately driven by business priorities rather than cultural debates or questions about technical ability. Their focus is on whether an artist's image, sound, and market appeal can be shaped into something profitable. If a particular profile fits within their system, they'll develop and package it in a way that maximizes commercial success, regardless of the broader conversations around authenticity or cultural perception. At the same time, critics often argue that the industry's power structure, where many major labels and executives have historically been white, has played a role in how music rooted in black culture is presented and marketed.
I think sometimes people get caught up in this thing of record labels dictate things and oh no, it's white old guys that are putting this out. Well, it's not old white men creating the content and it's not old white men buying the content.
Guess who just walked into the hotel?
Iggy Azalea has definitely been given more chances and bigger budgets than most other new rappers.
That was it. I swear that.
Like I was seeing high budget Iggy Azalea videos for quite some time now.
Started out hating, now you love my drip.
But who they choose to fund with money is only going to be who the world connects with. We're at a point now where it doesn't matter what they choose to put the money into. The people decide, and a record label never chose to put money into me, not in a million fucking years.
Oh, baby!
This is a concentrated push. This is a concentrated campaign. They have already decided a long time ago that this girl is going to blow up.
They point to patterns where black-originated genres are promoted through white artists like Iggy as mainstream faces, drawing comparisons to earlier industry models like the rise of Elvis Presley. From this perspective, the discussion isn't just about individual artists like your Iggy or, example, Vanilla Ice, but about how the business of music has shaped who gets visibility and how cultural sounds are packaged for mass audiences. Throughout history, turning something out of nothing into a global phenomenon has often been met with attempts to erase it or repackage it, yet each time black creators continue to innovate, building, reinventing, and creating something new. Still, the desire to consume black culture without acknowledging or respecting its origins has remained a recurring pattern, particularly within Western spheres. That's why preserving the history and continuing to speak on it matters. It creates a record, a paper trail that informs and educates future generations. When black artists enter white-coded genres, identity, context, and industry bias shape how they're perceived. Lil Nas X broke onto the scene with Old Town Road, blending trap and country, but his song was removed from the Billboard country chart, sparking debates about whether he belonged in country music.
We as black people are quick to let these white people come into our shit, do our shit, and we're accepting. Oh yeah, no, that's hip-hop, let him in. This black man wanna come and do a country-esque thing and get on the Billboard charts, and they said, no, you don't, black man. You're not country enough for us. Sorry.
The controversy reflected gatekeeping and systemic bias. Beyoncé, meanwhile, has explored country influences in projects like Homecoming and Collaborations, highlighting black contributions to the genre. Unlike Lil Nas X, her fame and credibility insulated her from harsh identity-based criticism, framing her work as reclaiming space rather than cosplaying. In fact, no black artist, man or woman, had ever won the Grammy for Best Country Album until Beyoncé's Cowboy Carter. A year later, the Recording Academy split the category into Best Contemporary and Best Traditional Country Album, reflecting debates over what counts as country, country pop, or crossover styles.
Wow, they still big mad that Beyonce won a Grammy for Country Album of the Year. So mad that now they split the category into two sections. The first is going to be Best Contemporary Country Album, and the second is going to be Best Traditional Country Album. How do you define traditional?
Because genre in this country, and in general, the music, is based on culture and really race. That's why they exist. Those categories exist because that's how they did it. You can simplify it in your brain to be like, oh, we wanted to sell to these people who like these things, and they would combine these things, but how it in the inception of it is, this is black music, this is white music. That's the inception of you separating those.
By contrast, the best rap album category has remained a single award, despite rap's own diversity, showing that genre splits are applied unevenly across music.
White rappers are afforded more freedom to change their genre at will. True or false?
I might have to think about that.
And then you have, we're talking about privilege, you have the ability to say, I rapped my ass off. I'm not going to do that anymore, at least for now.
I don't think it's that white rappers are afforded more freedom to change their genre. I mean, that's true, but that's not the only thing. White rappers have been shown to want to change genres. Credit to Eminem. I don't think he's ever wanted to change genres because he loves rap music. He loves hip hop.
Rock music has become a safe landing place. These are sort of pre-existing industry structures that welcome a famous person who got famous.
You didn't retreat into a whiter genre. In fact, you arguably went deeper into.
I got blacker.
When they asked him the question about retreating, not only did he say I got blacker, that's the easy line to grab onto, but it was more like he thought about it. You could tell he did think about it. Like, well, they normally do this, so I'm gonna do that.
A white rapper who comes from an extremely rich, property-owning, business-owning family in the American South, saying in an interview, I got blacker. Like, what does that mean? What is he saying? What did he mean to say? And what is he really saying? Because that's the thing, you're waiting for the switch. You're waiting for the switch. And even if he's switching to a different kind of art form that is still a black art form, he's not switching to country, which is what everyone expects. How different is it when what he's doing is saying like, okay, I did my rap thing, that got me on the map and I have all the cool, I can adopt all the black cool that I want. Now I just get to do other stuff. Whee! Everything is for me.
The problem also, Jack Harlow, is you're putting this on like a costume. Like because you're white, you just get to choose where you want to pop up. That's triggering for black folks. Because black folks don't just get to choose to show up places. And I take issue with people calling country music a white genre, right? But even in that space where Beyonce says, you know what, I'm gonna show up, she collabs with the people in that world. Yes. And you're just like, I love black music, I just want to show up here.
And there's a certain effortlessness, thoughtless, careless way that we colonize spaces that are non-white spaces.
I'm not a rapper. I'm an artist, I don't make rap music, I might rap.
Is we are ignorant of our own colonial nature. It's in the water, it's in our blood. It's not always taught, it is inherited. The systems of power course through us. And we are encouraged, and now federally mandated, not to inquire about it, not to question it.
A lot of people saying that I don't appreciate hip hop or I'm taking advantage of hip hop. My last hip hop album was fucking hip hop.
They get mad because I have braids, but I like the way it looks. They get mad because I got gold teeth or whatever. I like the way that it looks. I'm not trying to bite off anybody or anything. I'm just I like it.
Problem with Post Malone is that it looks like he used hip hop right until the moment where he didn't need it anymore, and then he said, all right, f this shit. And then now he puts out a project, and I don't think you really are gonna see a rapper on his next project.
It's harder for black artists to cross over. It's easier for white artists coming from any genre to cross over into pop, be they rappers or grunge rockers, whatever.
If a black rapper wants to do something completely sonically adventurous, it can often be treated as a whim or something to be ignored or a joke.
And that's the thing about black music and culture, often making parts of the white mainstream uncomfortable, not because the music itself is unfamiliar, but because the label forces an acknowledgement of origin, ownership, and cultural context. Who benefits from splitting categories in awards shows and the kind of labeling of words like urban music, grouping together genres like hip-hop, R&B, soul, and reggae under a single umbrella, and who also benefits from a range of music with distinct histories, sounds, and identities being compressed into a single marketable label. Renaming becomes a way of reshaping, making something deeply specific feel universal, but on terms that are easier to consume. And in doing so, it allows participation without necessarily requiring full recognition of where that culture comes from or what it carries with it.
1, 2, 2, 4.
What the fuck?
What often happens is that people are able to adopt the culture, build their careers on it, and then pivot away when it suits them. They can compete in the same space as their black counterparts, securing similar deals and audiences while benefiting from the credibility of the culture without carrying the realities that come with being black. In many cases, they're afforded more room to be average and still achieve greater success than those who originated the very styles they're using. Over time, this creates a more marketable and profitable version of the culture, but one that gradually distances itself from its roots, making it easier for almost anyone to become its new face. It becomes clear that many people treat black culture as something to be worn like a costume. It's an old repeating pattern, one that has grown over time and evolved into something highly profitable, turning culture into a commodity. This is especially evident in the entertainment industry, where it operates as a business model generating millions. In many ways, black culture stands as one of the most imitated yet least credited forces in the history of entertainment. Black culture is often used as a stepping stone within entertainment, shaping entire career arcs through what can feel like indirect appropriation, subtle imitation framed as collaboration or admiration, or, at times, something closer to outright costume. A common example lies in aesthetics, when a white female artist adopts styles, visuals, or dance moves long rooted in black culture. Behaviors once criticized or viewed negatively suddenly become celebrated when presented through a different lens. In those moments, what was once marginalized is rebranded as a new phenomenon, and the artist becomes its face, gaining acceptance within the power structures of Western media. When you look at artists like Jay Park, the influence of black culture is immediately visible, long before he ever speaks about it in an interview. It's embedded in his performance style, his fashion, his musical choices, and the overall persona he presents as an entertainer. The inspiration isn't subtle, it's foundational, but that raises an important question. Could an artist like him achieve the same identity or impact without those elements? The imagery, the hairstyles, or even the occasional use of African American vernacular English? Historically, the answer seems to be no.
You have something called racial imposter syndrome. That's where you feel guilty doing the other thing. You know, like I wanted to be Korean so much that I used to dress like Korean kids. I don't know if you know this, Korean kids just dress like black kids, so I ended up right back where I started.
Imagine everyone worldwide, they don't like you. They despise you, talk down on you, then they turn around and use your culture that they claim that you don't have.
The reason why it's so hard for people to accept that K-pop has its roots in Black American culture is that they look down on Black American. And that's because there's no inherent sense of negativity or devaluation of things that come from white people or white Americans. But bring up black kids that grew up in the inner city like New Edition and TLC, who inspired both those white artists and K-pop, and the conversation goes down very differently. Because black people and our cultures are very much looked down upon, especially on a global stage. So any association between blackness and K-pop feels more like an attack rather than a historical explanation of the art form.
As a Korean of the diaspora who specifically grew up in the US and have done a lot of dismantling around anti-blackness within our own community, I can spot this and say, oh yeah, K-pop is 100% stolen from black culture.
The global spread of hip-hop and R&B has shown that the dance, the mannerisms, the fashion, the choreography, the sound, and the emotional expression are all inseparable from the culture that created them. This is where the tension around cultural appropriation begins to surface, when these elements are adopted by non-black artists and repackaged as something new, especially in ways that generate profit or global recognition without meaningful acknowledgement or respect. It can feel less like appreciation and more like extraction.
But we need to ask ourselves, why has the appreciation of cultures been whittled down to, I like it, so I'm just gonna wear it for myself and profit off of it and look cool?
We are seen as culture that you can profit off of, that is fun to use as a costume.
Over time, it starts to resemble a kind of body-snatching dynamic, where the surface is replicated, but the cultural roots and lived experiences behind it are overlooked or erased.
The devil sitting on my shoulder, cause these streets they are getting colder, enemies they are getting bolder.
when it comes to artists like Luca Zuccotti, the question isn't straightforward. Is he simply exploring African sounds because they're globally influential right now? Or is he extracting from a culture he hasn't fully experienced? Especially if he hasn't spent time in Africa to understand the roots of the music. But then again, does physical proximity even settle the issue? Artists like Iggy Azalea and Jay Park both lived in and were exposed to the cultures behind the sounds they adopted, yet still faced similar criticism. So clearly, being present in a place doesn't automatically equal understanding or acceptance, which raises the deeper question: what actually defines respect in this space?
Too hot like a heater. My neck done froze like winter. Don't bet it on liquor.
Is it about intent, or is intent not enough without consistent actions over time? Maybe it's about patterns, who an artist collaborates with, who they credit, and whether they use their platform to elevate the culture rather than just benefit from it. And do they even realize the scale and impact they even have on black culture? And if someone like Luca were to rise to major stardom, who gets to decide whether that success is valid? There's no single gatekeeper. It becomes a negotiation between audiences, originators, and the industry itself, each with different stakes and perspectives. In the end, trust isn't something an artist can claim. It's something that's built or withheld over time.
Handsome guy, good looking. I didn't think too much about his playing or singing. I mean, it was okay, but I didn't see at that time what I saw later on.
Because a lot of people, when they heard Elvis, thought he was black, didn't they?
At first, yes.
Yeah, I mean, they said he's playing black music. He's a white guy.
Yeah, but see, at first he was playing more like rockabilly. He wasn't really getting into the things that he started to do later. But when he started to do that, then he started to turn heads, including mine.
Elvis came out with a style of his own, and it was very creative. And once he got into it, and you got that feel, Elvis just took off like a late freight.
All black records, which was called race records at the time, was played on black stations only. And when I did Tutti Frutti, Elvis Presley started doing it, which when I came out on the record scene, Elvis Presley was not out. In '51, I recorded for R.C. Victor before Elvis Presley. Then Pat Boone covered Tutti Frutti, although he covered a lot of other people. He was covering everybody that could be covered. Right after mine, he copied it. I was mad when he covered me because it stopped my sales.
Little Richard acknowledged Elvis's talent, though he also pointed out industry inequalities. Others like Fats Domino publicly rejected the idea that Elvis invented rock and roll, saying essentially we'd been doing this. The song Hound Dog was originally performed by Big Mama Thornton, something a lot of people might not realise. I didn't know that myself until I looked into the history. Like many others, the first time I heard the song was when Elvis Presley performed it. Which is why his version became the one most people associate with it. This is where the discussion becomes a bit more political, especially when people accuse Elvis of culture vulturing black music. The reality is more complicated. Hound Dog was actually written by two white songwriters, Jerry Lieber and Mike Stoller, who in the 1950s were writing a lot of music specifically for black rhythm and blues artists. Thornton recorded their song in 1952, and only about 3 or 4 years later they licensed Elvis to record his own version. So legally the situation was straightforward. The writers owned the song and could license it to whoever they wanted. But the criticism of Elvis often comes from the broader context of the time. America in the 1950s was still deeply segregated, and the music industry reflected that reality. White performers like Elvis had access to far greater radio play, television exposure, and national promotion, while many black artists were frequently blocked from the same level of visibility. In that sense, the controversy isn't just about who wrote the song. In parts of the segregated American South, these conditions were especially harsh. Black performers could be required to enter venues through back doors, kept out of sight of white audiences, and separated by curtains or partitions while they played. In some cases, they weren't allowed to speak to or interact with the crowd at all. It created a stark and painful contradiction. The music was welcomed, even celebrated, but the people creating it were deliberately hidden away. The audience embraced the sound, while the humanity of the performers themselves was denied. Around that time, the experience of black musicians was shaped as much by the social climate as by the music itself. Some artists, like Bobby Rush, even found themselves performing behind a curtain, not as a universal rule, but as a reality in certain places.
We work in a club, it's an all-white audience, where I work behind a curtain, night in and night out, where they want to hear my music, but they don't want to see my face. And J.B. Lenoir told me, he said, listen, I have a gentleman, a friend of mine, who might free this up for us so we won't have to do this in the years to come.
What sits underneath all of this is a deeper pattern of control. Who gets to create, who gets to profit, and who is allowed to be fully seen. Within a white-dominated power structure, black culture has often been both celebrated and constrained at the same time. You can see it in the image of Frankie Lyman standing on stage, smiling, composed, almost performing not just the song, but a version of himself that felt acceptable to a tightly controlled, largely white audience. The crowd might be captivated, even moved, but there was an unspoken boundary around how that feeling could be expressed or even acknowledged. It raises a quiet but powerful question. Was the audience holding back, or had they been conditioned not to recognize that a young black performer could stir something real and emotional in them? Either way, the tension is clear. The music breaks through, but the social structure tries to contain it. That contradiction runs through the era. White audiences were drawn to the beauty, energy, and emotional depth of the music, yet often resisted the presence, identity, and humanity of the people creating it. And in that gap, a system emerged. One that didn't just consume the culture, but reshaped it. It was packaged, sanitized, and redistributed in ways that made it more palatable and profitable within a white framework, often stripping away its origins and the people behind it. It's a pattern that feels almost symbolic, like a pull towards something powerful that can't be fully embraced on its own terms. The music moves freely, it always has, but the structures around it try to control how it's seen, who benefits from it, and how far its meaning is allowed to go. Elvis Presley was one of the highest earning entertainers of his time, and the numbers were staggering even by today's standards. He profited very well from black culture. He didn't even feature with any black artist, and to be honest, didn't have to. In fact, he didn't even feature with any white artist either. You might have seen him sing alongside white actors in some of the films he starred in, but not on record. Tom Parker tightly managed Elvis's brand and avoided unpredictable ventures. Segregated industry norms and cross-racial studio duets in mainstream pop were extremely rare in the 50s. That said, he absolutely spent time in black neighborhoods and music spaces in Memphis, especially in his early years. As a young man, he listened to blues, gospel, and R&B in environments where black musicians were performing. That wasn't illegal in itself. Jim Crow laws enforced segregation in schools, housing, and public accommodations, but they didn't make it a crime for a white person to walk into a black neighborhood or buy records from a black store. Socially risky? Yes. Legally forbidden? Not necessarily, because he had white privilege. Segregation primarily restricted black people's movement into white spaces, not the other way around. A white person entering a black venue might have drawn attention, but the legal power structure protected them more than it would with a black person crossing the same line in reverse. This imbalance is crucial to understanding the era, and in order for him to keep coming, he also had to be welcomed, well received, and because of his skill set, music communities, especially blues and gospel circles, often valued talent and sincerity. I think they truly believed Elvis wasn't mocking the style and in fact admired it and tried to embody it seriously and saw him as someone who genuinely loved the music. And also for some, there may also have been a sense that if white America was finally paying attention to this sound. And yes, of course, black newspapers sometimes questioned why white performers received greater promotion, and some black DJs and commentators pushed back on the narrative that Elvis created rock and roll. Some black audiences enjoyed Elvis's music, and for them to do that, he had to be doing something right. He had to pull it off and deliver it to a high standard, which created a cultural exchange in both directions, with black radio playing him in certain markets, and some black musicians saw it as helping normalize black-influenced music for wider audiences. The reaction wasn't uniform, it was layered. I hear the debates all the time about whether Elvis stole black music, black style, black culture, whether he packaged it up and sold it to white America. But when I look at it, I see something more layered. Here you have this tall, good-looking Southern kid with real talent, real presence, and a natural instinct for performance. He knew how to entertain, he knew how to read a room, work a crowd, and command whatever space he was in. That wasn't accidental, that was instinct mixed with obsession.
Rock and roll has got to go. And go it does at KWK. We're all through playing rock and roll records. This week is record-breaking week here at KWK.
The rock and roll music is obviously a means by which the white man and his children can be driven to the level with a nigger. It is obviously nigger music.
He grew up in the Jim Crow South, in places like Tupelo, Mississippi, and later Memphis, Tennessee, where segregation wasn't just social, it was law. The music itself was breaking barriers. Some of the whites, on the other hand, especially the Southerners in those times, must have felt uncomfortable with rock and roll associated with black culture.
We've set up a 20-man committee to do away with this vulgar, animalistic, nigger rock and roll bar.
No room in this city for the vulgar performances of Elvis Presley.
Seeing Elvis's express and perform hip movements and vocal inflections mixed with blues-based phrasing was criticized for being vulgar, corrupting white youth, and acting in a primitive or jungle way.
It's shocking. I watched him gyrate his legs and swivel his hips. And our parent-teachers group feels he should not be on television.
You've learned anything from the criticism level this year?
No, I haven't.
You haven't.
Because I don't feel I'm doing anything wrong.
And yet what often gets left out of the conversation is that he grew up immersed in black gospel, black blues, and black church culture.
Elvis's voice was that type of voice. He had that kind of bent and inclination and attitude.
When you're truly creative, you're drawn to what moves you. Creativity doesn't check skin color before it decides what to admire. If something crosses into your world and resonates with you, whether it's made by black artists or white artists, you respect it. In Elvis's case, he loved black music. That love is clear in the phrasing, the rhythm, the physicality of how he performed. Now, was it complex? Absolutely. As a white man in the 50s, performing music rooted in black culture, not just singing the lyrics, but embodying the sound, the movement, the feeling, was socially charged. He wasn't doing minstrel caricature. He wasn't putting on blackface like performers in earlier eras. He wasn't mocking the style. He absorbed it, studied it, and merged it with country and pop to express himself authentically. And that's where it gets complicated, because he was operating in a segregated system that gave him access to white audiences and venues that black artists often couldn't reach. He benefited from that system, and there's no denying that, but he also blurred lines that many people in that era were terrified to blur.